Good morning. Let me unmute you just in case. I just unmuted you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm not sure if we're on live. I
Carol.
just hear the music faintly. Hey, Anna, are we live?
Yes, we are. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, good morning again, and thank you for joining Straight Up the Middle. Thank you, Robin, for sitting in for your homeboy. I don't even
Always happy to.
I don't even know what a toba is. I think I've heard it before, but that's where he say he is. He had to attend one, so we're just gonna leave it at that.
I don't know what I can't remember what the acronyms are, and that's bad on me, but it's something good for the community.
Okay. Well, we have our other guest host coming in. All right. Good morning, Julius. We have you on. So I'm going to go get started. And, I like to start out with a prayer. So, Julius, I have you unmuted. Your camera is not on, but that's okay. Father God, thank you for this opportunity this morning. Lord, I ask that you would help us to leverage the talent that you've given us, Lord. But most importantly, Lord, in this day and in this time, brighter our tongues where we may offend, and loose it, Lord, where we can uplift and edify. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so normally that type of prayer, you have to start out talking about Trump because, you need a little prayer to go in with that.
He needs prayer.
He needs a little prayer, right? I wanted to start out with Biden. And just for our listening audience, I'm bad at this. I have to run everything. I want to give the call-in number out. But while I do that, I listened to one of Biden's morning. Good morning. I listened to one of Joe Biden's recent interviews, and it's to me it's obvious what the Democrat Party is doing as far as keeping him pretty much silent, keeping him safe because he tends to be. I don't say a loose cannon in the way that Trump can be, but I think Biden has an issue conveying the real message he wants. I think he wants to do too much. And a lot like me, I have a lot in my head sometimes and it comes up chopped up and or I may say the wrong thing, something like that. But what do you think's going on? Do you think Biden is a position that he can hold on to where he is and win it in the end?
I think they're being smart with keeping him safe and quiet. I mean, his and that's no secret, right? Because he's known as having or doing goofs, as they would call them, or so he's accustomed. That's what he's known for. I think everybody needs to be strategic to try to hold on to their positions until November. Even Trump. But Trump is making it easier, it appears, for. I think the Democratic Party, and I'm a Democrat, but I think the Democratic Party has a problem with conveying the message that to the audience that they need to speak to. Every message is not for everybody, and I think in this time right now to really galvanize people behind this party, they have to really start paying attention to the message and not doing a one for all. So I think they're very careful in regards to, it's a good thing because they're strategic in regards to that, but it's a bad thing because everything seems like it's rehearsed, practice, that type of thing. So Obama came out and spoke from the heart, even though they wrote speeches for him.
Right.
He conveyed it like they were his own,
Right.
So.
Right. And I know a lot of people, one person in particular, when I always say, because the first thing that comes to mind about President Obama, and I voted for him the first go around. And for the listening audience, I am the local Republican, the conservative here, but I voted for President Obama and he won me over. I mean, there's something to decorum. There's something to, you have to be a bit charismatic if you're trying to win over someone who doesn't share the same views. And President Obama had that down without issue. I mean, that's not something he struggles with. and that's how he won my vote. I think I was just a bit too starry-eyed with him, and once I realized, like, wait a minute, hey man, wait a minute, I can't vote for you the second go around. Although, it was a struggle, with
So
McCain.
I'm gonna ask you this craven question. So you would vote for Trump the second time?
Versus Biden, yes, and here's
Wow.
why. And here's why. And Julius, I want you to weigh in on this. You're still muted, my friend. I can unmute you. Okay, there.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to.
Oh no. Well, here's why I would vote for Trump. Well, first of all, he carries the R. He's a Republican. I'm not going to vote for a Democrat when there's a big difference. Biden has the left that he has to appease. We've already admitted that he has an issue conveying his message, but we also know I believe Biden's a moderate. He's been in Congress 40 plus years. I truly believe he's a moderate, but his party is leaning more left. And they see Trump as being on the ropes, and he is the economy and the COVID spiking every time he goes somewhere. The COVID spikes, so I think the left sees this is the best opportunity. Biden does not have enough himself to say, "Hey, look, he's going to be this middle candidate. He's going to have to give the left something," and that was the difference with Trump. Trump. I don't care if you say he doesn't have 4.3 billion credit, whatever. He's still a rich man. He wasn't beholden to any special interest. So that's why I'd vote for him.
Well, that was his spill. I'm talking about now in this date right now. And I'm not putting on the spot. Right now, Trump's base appears to be racist. That's that 30%, that's how they're depicted, right? Mm-hmm. Everything Trump, regardless as to what goes out in the world, is going on in the world, it appears the only people he's trying to appease is that small base, but he'll let us, regardless as to what party we are, die of COVID, be unemployed, just, and there's a lot of dog whistles that's going on. So I'm saying right now in this space right now, for us to, how he has handled everything, you would still vote for him?
I would, because I see President Trump trying to get, his signature thing is the economy. And I see he's been trying to get it going against what the left is using, the scare tactic and the COVID. They're fanning that every time.
But he didn't believe it. He didn't. He's the one. So when they brought COVID up, he didn't.
In the beginning,
it was a hoax.
In the beginning, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So why do you still give him?
I don't give him credit for COVID. Yeah, he could have responded differently, but I also was there too. COVID wasn't the thing of the day because the Democrats knew too. Nancy Pelosi knew too. What was the thing of the day when COVID was coming on and we should have been paying attention was the impeachment. So no one gave it that real consideration.
But no one called it a hoax either. Well, he's the president.
That's his Achilles heel. He picks the wrong thing. He just wants to come off right. I mean, that's what he does. I'm not that's his issue. He's very polarizing. He's not the one that's going to bring us together. But that does not mean his intentions. And I still think he's the best on the economy. And the polls bear that out. Biden may come across as the one that's better for the people overall, but the voting public says Trump is better for the economy. And we can go all the way back to Clinton. And what was his message? It's the economy, stupid. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to sit home and let businesses close for good, because that's the thing. If they're saying, and Julius, come and jump in on this one. If they're saying small businesses are closing for good, family-owned businesses are closing for good. I mean, for good is for good. So what president's going to sit around and say, okay, hey, look, right after this COVID, which we have no idea when it's going to end, we have all the data that says that kids don't carry the virus like adults. Why would he sit around and say, okay, we just want to wait for the COVID? My bad on not responding, but I'm going to wait for the COVID before I bring the economy back.
Well, I wouldn't expect for him to do that. But for one thing, the way I look at it, I'm just an average girl. Mm-hmm. That if the economy was as strong as was portrayed,
as we making it out to be, okay,
I think that the economy would have withheld 30 days. it wouldn't have been as drastic as it was. It would, and you can say that's part of the business owners and so forth. But even with the stimulus package that was set up, millionaires, billionaires are getting that money, which is crazy to me.
You make an excellent point. Julius, jump in because I know you're a
Yeah.
small business owner. I'm not
Yeah.
asking if you got anything. Did you? I'm not asking. But what do you think about that?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
Robin raises a good point.
No, I think both. I mean, I think maybe both are correct. Actually, I think that for whatever reason, I mean, what his main claim to fame, at least the way I'm analyzing it, is that he's got the economy, right? He's got the economy, and he didn't really have much else. So, COVID, you're right. If with the right way, I mean, really, everything should have been shut down for a lot longer than it
Mm.
was. But if they did, then the money engine stops. And being that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. They're talking about a vaccine that they may have next year, and even if they
That's
do
not
get it
COVID.
next year, it may only be about like 75% effective. I mean, we could be in this for a while. So then, what does that mean for the economy? So they have to do something. But then on the other end of it, this seems like if we don't deal with it the right way, we're gonna have to deal with this pandemic longer and longer. So it's like a tight little rope that he's got to walk Trump on.
Now let me ask you this, Robin. You don't find it a
So
bit
you know,
ironic that
but now things are stuck up.
and let me sit up because the last recording I sounded kind of echoish, and Julius, you kind of faded out on your last end of your point. But let me ask both of you this: you don't find it a bit ironic that, and when I say the Democrats, I'm talking about the Pelosi's and the Schumers and just the party, the top of the party. No one's talking about China. We're talking about how the virus is lingering over in the U.S., but we know where it came from, and when it fits the Democrats, they talk about how the numbers have gone down in these other countries, but they don't take China to task on. We wouldn't be dealing with this if you guys were open about how it happened, what you actually did, because with their population, we're being, and I'm being tangential, but I'm coming back to the US, we're being told you can get it now, it's droplets in the air. So the 6 feet is not the thing. So you need to mask up out in public. China has 3 times as many people. And you're trying to tell me they don't have droplets in the air? I mean, so to
A
you,
lot of people died from China too. I mean, and they were pulling people out of their houses when it was rumored that they had that virus. So, and I don't, and in life, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
mm-hmm,
With President Trump, or Trump being the president,
mm-hmm.
still saying that this is a hoax.
Well, he's not still saying it. He said it in the beginning.
Well, he has the ultimate decision, right, to get PPE out. And this is not false, because I know people that work in hospitals. So to get those things out to try to catch ahead, he was so. I just think that he doesn't believe it, for one, and it's based on his belief that people are dying, because there's no joke about it. People are dying. I know people that have been in the hospital, so I'm not hearing this from anybody. And I know people are in the hospital that were healthy when they have underlying conditions, but they're not in the hospital for diabetes or anything like that. They were in the hospital because of this hoax, right? But how does he? It's not how he started, but at some point in time, he could have gotten, you know what, this is real. Let's do X, Y, Z. Even now, opening up schools and so forth. They're thinking of the economy versus safety for the world.
What do you think, Julius?
I think it is how he started. I mean, personally, I think how he started that was the problem. He totally screwed up. I think everything should have been shut down. The minute that we heard that there was something going on in China, United States being that what it is, you'd have to shut down right away. And he didn't. He just kind of like let it go. And then we had it. I remember it showed up in California, and then before you know it, it was across the country within a matter of days. So I mean, I think that was the screw up there. So
Mhm.
you know,
Well, yeah, and I look at it this way. I don't know if you saw I saw it on C-SPAN, and yeah, I tend to watch that from time to time. Um, Rand Paul was pretty much giving Dr. Fauci and a couple of experts the business, if you will, about what the true numbers say, because we as consumers of some of this data, we get it from the medium that we're comfortable with. So I say that just kind of my disclaimer. So my point may be skewed right, but international data says that children do not carry the virus the same way adults. Now, each age bracket has been going up, but the skyrocketing bracket is the 25 to 40. And guess what? When I was 25 to 40, man, I'm in the house for a month. Everyone was complying. When the market completely tanked, that's because everyone was in the house. But now, hmm, I gave Clint an example, and I could give him another example. Behind me, we don't have any privacy fence up yet. The community hadn't done it yet. Well, my neighbors are having a birthday party for the kids. Well, okay, you got to have a birthday party, but in the backyard, so it's like I'm not kidding. It's 30, okay, 25 people. That's a lot of people for a backyard and kids running around. So you got adults. Now we're outside. That's good. But I saw them all go in the house. I mean, they're going back and forth out the house. What does that have to do with Trump? I mean, that's people not, well, that's people trusting too much. Well, my family doesn't have it. That's for the other people. They haven't been around anyone else. I mean, this whole thing that, well, because Trump is not looking at it a certain way, I think people are giving him, and it's the Democrats give him way too much credit that people are looking at him and following him. That's just not what it is. But the data,
well, but they are though, Tony. They
Yeah,
are
he's the
because
one that's on television a lot. Yeah.
for example, when he made that silly comment about the what was it, the bleach, or
yeah,
something
drink the
yeah,
bleach or whatever.
and then
Mhm.
you had people actually trying to inject themselves
I
with
think
that.
we had a person, but okay, we're always going to have the extreme cases. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just like people. That's just like your favorite rap artist back in the day. Michael Jackson. People just jumped up stage and falling out. I mean, you're going to have those extremes. But I'm talking about the general public is not following Trump. Okay, well, Trump didn't have a mask on because he never really wears a mask, so I'm not going to wear a mask. That's not what I'm seeing on Facebook. I'm seeing people just debunking the system because I think there's a conspiracy going on. I don't go with the conspiracy, but I do go with if there's international data. This is a congressional hearing, and if they're showing not hearsay, there's the stats up there, and they have the other countries that the Democrats like to point to, where it's negligible for kids. And if we can go with that theory, then why not open up the school? You don't have to
Well,
have, you can have distance learning. This is what we're doing at my school. Cutting the classroom down in half. That means there's a whole table in between students, and then I'm actually feeding into distance learning. There are a number of ways to do this because what we also know, because I think people are talking from, well, just keep the kids home. Well, then what does that do for the child? Because the underlying thing that really that schools, colleges provide is that closeness, it's that interaction, and the learning. There's so many studies coming out now. I don't know how it can be a study because they're coming out like in months, but showing that video teaching is killing the teaching star. And why is that? I have students who like, nah, Professor, I don't want to come on camera. I just want to do the work. That means they just want to do the assignment. We don't care about that because now I bet if they could come on and go to the student lounge on campus, they do that if COVID wasn't here. So we're talking about a situation. Why is he opening up the schools? Because learning has to take place. There are ways that we can do this. Again, let's point to those countries that we like to hold up as a model for the numbers going down. Their kids are in school.
well, so in regards to the schools opening, you have to look at what this governor has said. Do
Mm-hmm.
you feel the same way about this governor that you do about Trump?
Um, well, that's a loaded question.
I'm just
A
making
bit more
sure.
nuanced.
'Cause-
Do I feel about this governor? First of all, this governor communicates better than Trump. Um, he changed his position first. I think it was the mask thing. What was it? He wasn't going to allow them in. I know he changed within a day. He had to walk back a decision. Um, I just think that comes from pressure. People who speaking the loudest. But finish your point though. You were saying something about this
So I
governor.
think that in regards to the schools opening, I don't disagree the schools opening, right?
You don't.
The buildings. I don't disagree with that. And there, he's saying that the building, he never said that the kids have to come back into the school. He said the building has to be open, which I think that even like with Hillsborough County, they're handling this differently. I think that the kids that are doing well on e-learning should be remain on e-learning. They're self-sufficient. They are, they don't need a lot of help, so they can continue to do that at home. The kids that are struggling, the kids that were struggling before COVID, are failing now. So I think those kids that are struggling in the, in that classroom, they go to school and they get that one-on-one attention from that teacher. Out of 30 kids, it may be 5, it may be 10 people. So I think that they need more structure, and that while this is going on, that they let the smart kids, you hate to say that, but the kids that do better in school, that needs little supervision, they remain doing what they're doing as long as their parents can support that. And then the kids that have issues, this would be an opportunity for them to get that one-on-one attention, where there's not 30 kids in there, there may be just 10 kids in there.
Well, let's look at it this way. And Julius, I know you. I know you have kids. So I thought you have kids. Let me get away from that. But that's one of those Trump things there. What is it? Generation, and the name is always changing. After Generation Z, I think they call them
I can't keep up.
From 2010 on, those kids are growing up in a post 9/11 world, school shootings, all of this uncertainty, and now we have a health crisis. And I think it's awful presumptuous to say, oh, well, the bright ones are going to do good at home, and just only the ones who struggle need to be in school. I mean, there is a mental health component to this that has to be weaved into the type of learner. And this just will not happen because we're trying to find a convenient way to school children. I think there's no best way to do it. There's so many intangibles there that need to be addressed. I was up at a daycare. We're trying to get our grandson into a daycare over here where we moved. And so my wife is tying up the mask so it fits a regular mask. I'm like, I don't think the kids, I mean, he's like 2. I don't think I have to wear the mask. I'm trying to whistle. So the lady comes out. No, he doesn't have to have a mask on. But, and I said to her as we were walking out, what about the kids? Because when I'm in Home Depot, I can barely breathe with that mask on. And when people go around the corner, I'm always bringing it down so I can breathe, and I put it back up and I go around the corner. What about the kids that they're trying to say, okay, well, you're in the class, you have to wear the mask? What about the ones having breathing problems? I'm just waiting for a lawsuit to pop up. My kid was too afraid to take the mask off, so they suffered some type of medical, setback. And there's
that's where the parent would come in and use their wisdom about their kid. I don't think they'll send a kid to school if they have a breathing problem.
What? That's a lawsuit waiting. Of course we do that.
I think that's the parent's responsibility. If they follow DeSantis' rule, DeSantis one is ordering the schools open and ordering everybody to get back into action. So I think the parent would make that decision. Say, hey, my kid has asthma, or my kid has this, and he can't do X, Y, Z. So there has to be other arrangements made for that child.
Or the opposite. What if you have a child that has asthma, goes to school, and then contracts it and dies?
I was going to ask you. You're the lawyer on the panel. So what's the legal? What are we looking at? Just considering this, not saying because school's not in. What do they need to put in place legally besides a disclaimer?
Oh man. Well, I mean, it's hard to sue the government. I mean, it's a lot, but you can, because this was a decision that he made knowing what's going on. I know in Miami, they're taking extra precautions. I know they're saying that all the schools got to open up, but I understand Miami-Dade, for example, they're doing things a little different, because of the potentials, that kids could get infected. And I think you're going to probably have some infections. I think it's inevitable if you open up the schools. So then if they intentionally did this, even if it was good intentions and they did this and people got sick, I think that would open it up for liability. So what the government would have to do to protect itself, I mean, they can have disclaimers, but I don't even know if that would work because they're so gung ho about opening up the schools. I don't know if they're, as far as I understand, I heard that they're making it mandatory that they open. So if they're open, then that means kids got to go to school. So I don't even know what protections that the government could have. Now, what saves the government is that there's a cap on how much you can sue for. FYI.
They're making it mandatory, and also they're making it mandatory. And I mean, that would be funny. They're making it mandatory, but they're also giving you a disclaimer, making you sign a disclaimer against that would
right.
be walking to do both those things at the same time. Protect themselves from lawsuits, but they're making you do it.
So now let's turn before we get away from this because I want to finish the COVID discussion. I see this plays into the Democrats. And when I say that, I'm talking about the leadership. It plays into their hand. We couldn't get them on Russia. We couldn't get them on Stormy Daniels. We couldn't get them on taxes. We couldn't get them on anything. This pandemic. So how do we tie our base to it? Since we like to talk base lingo, how do we tie our base to it? Guess what? Latinos and blacks are so prone to this because when you bring up Miami-Dade, you might not want to say it, but you need to say it. Heavily Hispanic, mostly Hispanic in the school districts, right? It is one of the largest in the country, if not the largest. And I'm looking at Miami-Dade, community college. But the school system, the feeder schools are just as bad. So I think the reason why people, you may want to call them woke. I don't consider myself to be woke. The longer this goes on, and now what many of us thought was already happening, the air droplets now, and Governor DeSantis has this thing. He always says, "Hey, when you're in the AC, that's when you're at risk the most." I'm like, well, I get it. So you have to be outside the whole time. Well, even if you're outside and you're not on a beach, where the air droplets going? I mean, it has to go somewhere. Do you just stand upwind, downwind? I mean, there's just too many things going on. And I think the way they're portraying this and bringing in that demographic, and they're, once again, the poor black folk, we got to help them out because, that COVID going to get them if we don't. Because I'm talking about the top now. That Democrat Party has to be the savior. So they want you to know, and this is what old African Americans had to deal with before, and Dr. C.J. Woodson talked about it in one of his books. They always talk about how weak, if you will, African Americans' systems are. But what they didn't say back in the day is those diseases were Caucasian diseases. So those maladies we never had in our system, so we needed time to build up those natural defenses. I see them coming a different route here. We're in the millennium, so we're not talking about most of these diseases are out. But I still see them using as pawns their base. Because the only time they talk about any other race, white folks, and they talk about the older generation. But any other time the Democrat talks about the COVID and what needs to happen because why Trump is wrong is because African Americans with all these bad choices they've made over the years. Once again, the demographic that just can't get it right. We need to look out for them. And I take offense to that. I just do.
But the statistics do show that it's disproportionately affecting Black people, especially in the South. I mean, it's in places like Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to be honest.
But here's the thing.
You can't
but you
ignore
have to split that conversation out. Are you saying affect them as in diagnosis, antibodies? Do they have the disease or the death? Because there are 3 breakouts. And like the conversation with Clint, you can make the stats say anything. Where'd you pull the data? Where'd you pull the data from? So when we talk about affecting African Americans, are we talking about because when they test us, we have more of the antibodies because we built up this natural defense, or are they the one actively, as far as they can tell, with the actual COVID-19 being active in our systems, or are we talking about just completely the death rate?
So what difference does it make if a person...
It makes a big difference because if I have antibodies, then I've already built up a natural defense.
So what they're saying is that Blacks are more prone to be affected by COVID because of the underlying health conditions that they have. Feeds into what is... COVID did nothing but confirm all the disparities that the Black community has. That's what they did, the disparities.
I'm gonna have to cut you off. I think I missed this 2 minute to break things. That's why I need Clint. So we're gonna take a quick break. I just saw that chat, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Straight Up the Middle. I'm gonna mute everybody out.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all gotta see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan.
Separated.
We were able to get in touch with each other
and had
in
no
no time.
idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was
the
fine.
most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm
don't
and keep
ignore
to the
this
plan.
message.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
When it comes to reality radio, everyone is a star.
I know that's right.
On your smooth soul and R&B station.
On the World Wide Web.
Access granted.
In Touch Radio.
Hello, Kubo. What have you got planned for today?
Come on, this way.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
It's the most powerful magic there is.
Head outside to discover incredible animals.
Wow.
And beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure. So grab your loved ones and explore a world of possibilities. Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
My teacher said that we should have a plan in case of an emergency. Do we have one?
First thing I'm going to do is grab a flashlight with dead batteries.
I'm going to start randomly throwing clothes in the bag. You two will be hiding in the closet and Dad won't be able to find you.
And that's when we both start crying.
Uncontrollably. Can you pass the cutlets?
Winging it is not an emergency plan. Make sure your kids know what to do during an emergency, who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Search Ready Kids at nyc.gov or call 311. Brought to you by the New York City Office of Emergency Management and the Ad Council.
All right, we're back. In Touch Radio, reality radio, where everyone's a star. And I forgot to say that. Man, I need Clint here to carry that thing. He's really good at that. Okay, so let's pivot now, because one of the things that I mentioned earlier with you guys is the recent crime spree. So how I will tie that into what we're talking about. We're talking about Biden and his campaign. The implication, always the 800-pound gorilla in the room, is that the African-American vote sits Democrat. We won't talk about Kanye just yet. That'd be an outtake. But now with the crime spree, and I have some numbers here, and these come from the Washington Post, by the way. So they say since June, the crime rate is up 22% overall from last year. But when they break out some of those big cities, it's up 34% in Philadelphia, 23% in 34% Chicago, 23% in Philadelphia, 43%, I think, in Tennessee, and some of those stats may be off. New Orleans, 36%, Indianapolis, 38%. Jacksonville, Florida, it's up 13%. That's right in our backyard. Unfortunately, the tragedy of it was a 3-year-old that was shot and killed, and the 17-year-old, right? There were 3 of them, correct? What does this do to the narrative of Black Lives Matter, and how Biden, to me, is not out in front of this? This is one of those, I think, is a casualty of keeping him silent, because he can't get out in front of this. Given his comment to Charlemagne the God, if you black, if you ain't black, so he's already kind of caught up in, I need to say things a bit differently. But now we have these killings, and we have a movement going on that I'm very much a part of. Robin is always on the front line. So I just bring it back to the question: how does the crime spike, black on black crime? how does that spike help or hurt this movement?
I wanted to say this. You hear that a lot amongst a lot of commentators. You hear it a lot on Fox where they say, exactly this. Well, you don't really care about Black matters if you don't, because of all the black on black crime.
Mm.
But I always thought that was a poor argument because to me, they're two different things. You got black on black crime, which is, one of the ills in the Black community, and we all know it. But this is not but we're not talking about, we're talking about black on black crime, but then when you compare it with the Black Lives Matter, it's an entirely different issue. It's apples and oranges. One is black on black crime. One is police brutality against the Black community. They're two different things.
I agree.
So, so honestly, when they ask that question, that's how I would answer it. I think it's, I'm not saying about you, Tony, but I just think it's disingenuous to try to make that comparison. They're two different things. They don't have anything to do with each other. Black people know that they're, we need to do something about black on black crime. And, it's a lot of social issues that are going on in the Black community, but these are two totally separate things. So, they Black people need to stop killing Black people, but cops need to stop killing Black people.
For real.
And,
okay,
and
so Robin,
that's just what it is.
Now, Robin, since I know your position on what we call the Orange Man, no one said, I just said that, just throw it out there, give you guys something to chuckle about. He wants to be a law and order president. Don't you think this plays right into his hand? Whether it's a disingenuous argument or not, these are stats that you can't get away from, and they've taken place. We're talking June, so they've taken place post George Floyd when we're trying to say Black Lives Matter. Remember, we're beating people back by saying all lives matter. Don't say that. And I was one that I wasn't on the fence. I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, I know what my people are saying, but I only say Black Lives Matter too because it's the point that we're driving home. So this is not a rhetorical question because I'm debating it personally. How do we have two different conversations when we're talking about the same thing? Black Lives Matter.
Well, we do have two different conversations just by doing that. I think that it is two different conversations, right? The police, that's a job. They take an oath to protect and serve, and they are paid by taxpayers' money. You want to put down and be specific about that. Black Lives, and mind you, we do have to have both conversations at the same time, right? Because what I was telling people here in Tampa is that 43 deaths from the time of June or whatever, that was here locally. What happened to George Floyd was national. So we need to look at what happened to George Floyd and others, create policy wherein that won't happen here. But we do have to have a conversation about these senseless killings. These kids are in Robles Park, AK-40s. That's the name of, that's the, whatever, guns, the illegal guns, right? I was reading Daryl's, I'm sorry, it popped up. But we have to have the conversation because kids are still, these kids are going into communities, spraying houses with bullets, and we have to have that conversation. We can't, somebody told me, sister, they called me, let's keep that quiet. We'll handle that. I said, well, heck, these murders have happened since the beginning of the year, and we haven't said anything about it. My take on it is I didn't carry my kid 8 and 12 hours for somebody, not a police officer, nor a senseless. These are innocent, bystanders or whatever, included it for people to kill it. We have to have that conversation. There are two separate conversations in regards to they're local, they're not federal. So the president shouldn't be involved with local issues. And I think that we need to put policy in place to handle the situations with the cops, right? Because that's accountability. I don't have any, and this is me personally. I don't have anything soft for these kids that are walking around killing people because of a gang, senseless killings. I can't. I'm the wrong person to talk about with that because I can't do it. Answered your question.
Yeah, you did. So Anna, or it could be DJ CEO, but make a good point. So I'm going to read this comment out. Black on black crime is a moot point. Crimes are committed in proximity. Very good point. No one ever discusses white on white crime or Asian on Asian crime, yet still it happens. It's just another topic or discussion. It's a distraction and deflection of correcting the system of racism. We kill one another due to self-hate and poverty-stricken communities. Give them a reason to love one another and care for one another and resources to take care of themselves. Crime would decrease. Yes. And I love that. I love that whole layout.
So does that mean that we shouldn't talk about it?
No, of course. And I think that's not COVID. It's the ceiling fan that I had to turn off. I don't want y'all thinking, look, this guy be wiping down the screen or something. You know what I think? And this just might be a jerk statement. I want to see the stats on the white on white crime and the Asian crime, because we can't take away our stat because we're having a conversation about Black Lives Matter. How about we just put up the white on white crime stat so then we can say we're no different from you? How about we just do that so we can get rid of that, senseless argument if it's truly a distraction. There was also, go ahead.
The stats that you provided, was that just the crime rate going up? Or was it separated by, is 22% of
all?
Okay, so we need to separate these numbers. That's what I was going to ask you. We need to separate these numbers to find out what of this 22%, 34, 23, and all this other stuff, what are those black on black crime? How is that separated?
Now, this doesn't speak to that, but this is in the same vein. And these are killings amongst 4 years, from 2015, starting 2015 with President Barack Obama. I think they said 258 people were killed in 2015. Let's say 258, 216, and 234. Those were the numbers, at least the 3 years of numbers. For Trump, it's 224, 228, and 250. So really the numbers are about the same. So the talk about, and that was Washington Post as well. So the talk about, and they're not a right-leaning news media, not to say their data is correct. I also think what's a distraction is also to say that, Trump somehow doesn't care about African Americans, and that when we have this conversation, somehow we have to have a different conversation about President Trump, because President Trump is the same type of Republican president that we've had before, but in a way he's different. What I mean by that, most, and they're all white, president candidates, they're not coming to the hood. Some that would say they're going to meet with the NAACP, but it only gives the NAACP a reason to diss them publicly. Well, they canceled the meeting. They didn't want them to come because they don't share our views. I mean, that's why Republicans in the past have just like, just that's a base that we can't get. Then you get Trump coming along, foul-mouthed New York guy. What the hell do you have to lose? People hated that because he talked in a very matter-of-fact way, because he probably meant that. I think he meant that. What do you have to lose? We have those pointed conversations with friends when we're trying to get them on the right track. Come on, do it. What do you have to lose? His numbers are going up. Under his presidency, he's done a couple of things, even recent as the other day. But, I'm going to say the criminal reform bill, the First Step Act, permanent funding for HBCUs. We just had a black president for 8 years. And those were just appropriated numbers. But now Trump has given them more solid funding. And I have those numbers somewhere, but it's something like almost $1 million a year.
When did he do that?
Last year.
The permanent funding?
Yeah, does all, but see, you won't get those type of talking points. Certainly not gonna get from Democrats. You won't get them from the CNN and MSNBCs because they don't want that. Now, what did he do? What day for yesterday? Because now Goya is under pressure. Their president, CEO, whatever, praised Donald Trump at the White House, for being a builder, and we're glad to have this type of president. So now they want to boycott Goya. After Trump, this signed a Hispanic Prosperity Initiative because he's trying to get some of that vote too. He's doing nothing any different from any other president going into an election year. So now they want to attack and boycott and cancel Goya, which is going to be an uphill battle because Hispanics like them black beans and that, right? So you go out there and try to cancel them if you want to and let him peel off some of those disenfranchised Hispanic votes. Then you got yourself another Donald J. Trump for another 4 years. So I just think, we can chop this up a number of different ways. I'd like to see President Trump say things differently and just not say some things at all. How about we just guess, okay, I think he's like for it, or just have Pence say it, have somebody else do it.
So I think you make reference to President Obama. He didn't do things, everything that he could have done. He didn't sit there and twiddle his thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and some things he might not have had the courage to do. So I can offset and justify, just like I'm hearing you do in regards to understanding what your president is doing, just to understand exactly what Barack Obama was going through, right? Not having the courage to stand up and identify and say, hey, you know what? I'm doing this for, people say that he didn't do anything for blacks. Like, this is not for blacks.
Right. And he didn't.
But everything that he did benefited the crack and cocaine issue. So he did do things that the healthcare that benefited, that was a disparity with blacks. And when he changed those laws or put something in place, they were the main ones that benefited from it, right? Released because of that. So I think that, both of them are in their own little space in regards to not having the courage and something a white man can get away with doing. And
this is true.
Well, we also have to remember that he had a lot of opposition during the last 4 years. I mean, it was like almost like outright complete opposition. So, he had to do everything by executive orders.
Correct.
So you got to kind of take that into, I was surprised at what he was able to get done when he had like just about the entire Congress against him. He was able to still keep operating. So to me, that was impressive. And I think he did a lot actually for the black community. I don't know why people say that he never did anything. I mean, number one, just the fact that he was there to give, black people, particularly black men, a new image than what we've had for years and years, a poor image, a very bad, violent, irresponsible image. He was the catalyst to change all that. Also, the progressive movement. So I think he actually did a lot, despite all of the opposition he had received the last 4 years. So I think you got to keep that in mind too.
Yeah, and I'll give him that. I didn't say that he did anything, so certainly you guys were right to say, well, you didn't say he did anything good. You only say what he didn't do. I don't know. I said that he didn't do it until Robin said something. I only said what Trump did versus, okay, then you make your own decision about what Obama didn't do. But here's the thing, to Julius' point. He had the whole thing when he came in. He had the Senate and the House when he came in. But he spent the first 2 years,
for the first
don't ask, don't tell, and the healthcare. He didn't do anything else. So now when you go into that lame duck because, okay, now people like me who voted for him the first time, in his first 2 years, I'm ex-military, you start to dismantle some things that are true, and going with these socialized experiments, like, okay, yeah, you can't get my vote next 4 years. I mean, okay, you got it. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's up on my wall. You can probably see it right there. I'm a Republican with the inauguration picture of Michelle and Obama and Judge Chief Roberts. So, I mean, I voted for him. I think he's probably one of the best presidents we've had. I'm not gonna say he's the best like you guys would probably say, but he's one of the best that we've had. So I'll split the
You're
deck.
saying that about Obama?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So let's before I leave the Black Lives Matter one, I also saw an interview, a clip of an interview done with, I think she is they're calling him the chief. So she's the Black Lives Matter chief, I believe, in Philadelphia. Her thing is, and I couldn't believe what I saw. She says that her plan and what her vision is to see the police defunded over the next 5 years where they're completely out of the neighborhood. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, ladies and gentlemen, we don't want the police in our neighborhood. I mean, that type of response from the Black Lives Matter, who you think is hurting? That whole position on defunding the police, not changing the terminology, because we know what they mean is to, reallocate money to have different type things in place. Why not change the terminology? The reason why they don't is because they need their base lingo to think we're just going to take all their money from them. But in the meantime, you have cops retiring, taking early retirement, just like they did in the military when they started changing things. Guys who are over 17 years, like, no, I'm going to take this early out. I may lose maybe a couple $1,000s in my retirement pay, but it's worth getting out. Things are changing. So you have cops opting out. And I know, Julius, you were an ex-police officer. This puts the streets at risk, but it puts the African-American community more at risk. And we know that. So again, just like the Black Lives Matter conversation and the skyrocketing stats, okay, let's throw in the Asian stats and the white stats. But then how does this help the African-American, again, community? Because then we're going to look at because I am African-American, regardless if I'm Republican, then we are looked at as, we got to help them out again, because guess what? They ain't smart enough to come in out the rain, so they already say we don't want no cops in the neighborhood. That's not that. I'm being very, typical here, but that's how I see it. That's what drove me out of the Democrat Party. I can't stand for someone to think that I'm too dumb to come in out the rain, and that's what I got from the top DNC. So I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Well, now the defund the police issue is kind of a complex issue. I've done a couple of speaking engagements about this.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of go into like the whole breakdown of like what that actually means and what it would look like practically. I don't know if a lot of people would fully understand, because it'd be like a really complex way of how you have to actually roll that out, and it could change the police, but this is politics. I mean, you have to find a way to get people to get it and get out and vote. So, I agree with you. I don't necessarily like the term defund the police, but you need something to kind of stir people and get them out at this point, Biden and whoever he's going to choose for his VP, which is, I think that choice is going to be critical. The only thing I think he's only going to probably do one term. Whoever he chooses, I don't know. I think he might just do one. Whoever he chooses is going to be critically important, because that's going to probably most likely be the person that's going to, run the next term. But right now is, people just want to get Trump out, and so they're going to do whatever they've got to do to get people to come out, because they didn't come out for Hillary. They did enough. Just didn't come out for Hillary. Just like a lot didn't come out for a lot of people. So even though the term sparks interest, that it really, really does, and I'm sure like it's going to get people out. So I think you're right, but some change needs to happen. I mean, there's really just no way around it.
So
no way around it.
Go ahead, Robin. Who is that VP nominee?
That's going to be interesting.
Very interesting.
I like, and I haven't seen much of her. I like Susan Rice. They haven't talked about. I don't know who they're going to pick. It's going to be interesting. But defund the police is that's a talking point, right? People want to stop and ask, what? Defund the police? So that's a talking point. But what's important is just here locally. Mayor Castor said that 90%, 90% of the calls they get are mental, homelessness, and addiction. 90%. 10% is crime.
You got a minute.
I'm sorry?
You have 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Oh, so, that is it's open conversation. Defund, divest, and reallocate. That 90%, police shouldn't go out on those calls. They should have people that are specialized in that. So that's reallocating that money to those calls.
Okay, that makes sense. Defund, divest, and reallocate. I like that, and I agree. I'm glad you guys at least admit, it's not really what we mean. It's just a tactic that they're using because I think your base needs to think that you're taking the money away. I want to read a quote as we leave. 1 minute left, and I cite Dr. Whitson because I've just had gone on one of his books lately. He says that the difference in races is not evidence of superiority or inferiority. It merely indicates that each race has certain gifts which others do not possess. And it's by development of those gifts that a race justify its right to exist. And if we step back, this whole racism thing, it's about hate. And I think some people articulate that when they take a deep breath, but when we go into it, it's about racism, white and black, but it's about hate, and it has no skin color because we're all old enough to have a black person that hated on us worse than a white person did. Sometimes it's family. I'm gonna leave that right there, and just
another show.
At the end of the show. All right, we're straight up the middle. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.